Hey guys! So I'm guessing you would have received this recording from a friend who is recommending a business to you, but so far you're pretty much in double mind or you're confused about taking it up, right? So that's not a problem. Let's talk some common sense on finance. This will roughly take up about 15 minutes. So please listen without any prejudice and let's go. So why do you think you're averse to doing business? Do you have any past business experience by which you can authoritatively declare that this is not your cup of tea? I can predict with certain conviction that for 90% of you that is not the case. The reason is pretty simple. You have never thought about it. Come on, admit it. You have not thought about it. Which brings me to the next question. Why have you never thought about taking up a business? And the answer to that is our 20 plus years of education system. The education system, which was designed to create workers to man assembly lines during Industrial Revolution era, which worked perfectly fine 200 years ago. But you're trying to fit that into a knowledge economy which is simply not going to work. The current education system, which you followed for 20 plus years, did not impart you with any measurable life skills. You still have no clue how to do your taxes, but you still hopefully remember that Christopher Columbus discovered America. A fact which has been refuted and disproved by multiple historians later, but more on that for another video. So now that we have debunked the one fact which you thought you knew, let's get down to the crux of this video. Let's face it, our education system massively failed us. I mean, not for those amongst us who is the next Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Larry Page or Michelangelo or Picasso. For the rest of us mortals, money pretty much rules our life. We don't have any deep-seated passion for anything like that. So it's money and job as a means for money. So when it comes to money, which is such an important, critical decision parameter in our lives, how equipped are we to make some of the most important life decisions based on finance? My guess is the odds are slim to none. I mean, for those of us who believe that we can pick up this wisdom off the street, let me debunk one important financial wisdom which is passed on from one generation to the next. Buy a house, dear, that is going to be your asset. Now, for 90% of you out there, this translates into a home loan. Let me go to emicalculator.net and let's say the price of the house right now is 50 lakhs at 9% home loan interest. If I scroll down, now that would be the interest you're paying and that is the actual principal amount you were repaying. Now, admit it, this comes as a shocker for pretty much all of you. I don't think you would have ever thought about it in this manner that you're paying so much of interest to some nondescript bank. See, there are multiple calculations to this which I have not accounted for, like the net present value, the time value of your EMIs, as a disposal, tax returns, etc. etc. Let's suspend all that for a while. Did you know this basic fact that you are paying so much of EMI? You're paying so much of interest as part of your EMI? The answer typically would be no. Some logical people out of all of you who are listening might be saying that, see, I'll be disposing this in another 25 years, so then that's when I would realize the appreciation of my asset. But come on, typically, that's the house you stay in. I don't think you're going to sell it off at the end of your EMI tenure. Now, even if you do manage to sell it off, you're not going to get a lucrative offer for a 25-year-old building. And in a volatile economy, exactly how easy it is going to be selling off a 25-year-old building. We could have invested the same EMI in mutual funds. We could have invested the same EMI in business. We could have invested that EMI in a startup or in developing ourselves, but no. So now that we have decided to take up some time to educate ourselves on personal finance, let me introduce two important concepts of personal finance according to experts. This has been taken from the book The Rich Dad Poor Dad by famous author Mr. Robert T. Kiyosaki. So the first concept refers to the 4 methods of generating income. According to Mr. Kiyosaki, there are 4 important methods to generate income. There is employment, self-employment, business and investment. Now the first 2 quadrants, employment and self-employment, are considered to be active sources of income, as in your active time and presence is required for you to generate income from these two sources. The other two, business and investment, are by and large considered to be passive sources of income. Your time and presence is not really required. Now, let's focus on the first two quadrants, employment and self-employment, which I think would be the quadrant that defines most of your income situation as of now. So the income you generate from an active source is fairly limited. Why? Because the time is limited. You are selling your time to generate income and you have only limited time, 24 hours each. Now within the same 24 hours, you also have to fit in friends, family, passion, living, leisure, travel, and anything else which makes life worth living. So it's very important to identify your limit of time and hence the limit of your income that you can generate from these two sources. Let's do a quick math. Let's assume that you're 25 years of age, fresh out of college, fresh into your new job, and your salary after taxes 25,000 per month. And let's assume that you are managing to save 40% of this every single month, which is again close to impossible because of all those education loans and you have your living expenses to take care, etc., etc. But again, let's go with the best case scenario. We are assuming that you are saving 10,000 per month. And let's assume that you're doing this for the next 30 years, that is 30 prime years of your life, and you retire roughly around 55, 56 years of age thereabout. So by the end of this, you would be having 36 lakh in your savings. Now, there is an obvious logical flaw to this, which is that when your career progresses, your salary would be increasing and hence you would be able to save more. But let's also factor in the fact that when your career progressing, your life is also progressing, you get married, you have children, your parents are aging, you yourself are aging. So there are a lot of expenses also to account for this increase in your salary. And all this without even accommodating the volatility of a job market. We are assuming that there is not going to be any recession, no financial depression, your job is always secure, your salary will always be increasing, etc. Now, that's a lot of ifs and buts to take care, even for this 36 lakh. Let's take an even better scenario. Let's assume that you're managing to save double or triple of this amount throughout the course of your career, which would bring this total amount of savings to 72 lakh or even 1.08 CR. Even in the best case scenario, 1.08 CR is the amount of savings which you would have if you are purely looking at saving some amount of money per month. You're on the wheel, you're running a rat race, and this is what you get. Now, if that is not the lifestyle you want and that's not the destination you're looking for, then you can look at the other two quadrants, that is business and investment. Now, investment requires huge capital. Not your monthly SIP, which can never make this quadrant into a passive sources of income, but huge projects like real estate projects, startup investment, angel investment, venture capitalist, etc. Now, honestly, if you had that kind of money, we would not be having this conversation. So, come on, face it, you don't have that kind of money. Which brings us to the last quadrant, which is business. In business, you are leveraging not just your time, but the time of people who work for you, your employees, etc., to generate income. This might be an initially active source of income because initially you would have to put in some time to take care of the business, to build your business. But later, this is definitely going to be a passive source of income. For the massive Indian middle class, business is the most viable option to generate passive income. Now, you might have certain dreams in your life. You know, any journey, the journey is extremely beautiful, yes, but the destination is what makes the journey meaningful. So I'm pretty sure you all have dreams. Just think for a second, whatever quadrant you're in, is that the vehicle which will take you to your dream, which will take you to your destination? If you want to go to Switzerland, you will most probably not cycle there. You will take a flight, right? Now, we move on to the second most important financial concept of personal finance, the concept of asset and liability. There are innumerable accounting books out there which defines assets and liabilities in the technical terms, but let's try and define assets and liabilities in the most simple terms. An asset is anything which puts money into your pocket, and a liability is anything which takes money out of your pocket. For personal finance, this is the definition which would come most handy to you. By this definition, what do you think? A car is an asset or a liability? When you buy a car for your personal use, money is going out of your pocket. There is the fuel expense to take care of, vehicle insurance, annual repair, and umpteen other expenses which come with a car. However, if you put the same car into use, like an Uber, Ola, or a Grab, then you are making money out of that car. In this case, the car becomes an asset. When you buy an apartment for your own personal use, money is going out of your pocket, it's a liability. But when you buy an apartment to rent it out, money is coming into your pocket, that becomes an asset. So obviously, we would try to maximize our assets and minimize our liabilities. Now, assets are of two classes. One is an appreciating asset and the second is a money generating asset. An appreciating asset refers to anything which you buy at the right time and exit at the right time. Now, who decides the right time? It's the market, the respective market, which decides the right time of entry and exit. An illustration of an appreciating asset would be gold, land, stocks or shares of company, etc. Educate yourself, do the research so that you enter and exit at the right time. The second class of asset is the money generating asset. It generates revenue in real time and not at a distinct point in future. Business is a brilliant example of a money generating asset. So the second concept of personal finance is to accumulate as many money generating assets as possible, which can later be converted into appreciating assets or move into the investment quadrant altogether. So now that it's obvious that business is the way to go for somebody from an average middle class background to maximize their assets and to generate more income, let's look at the kind of business models which are out there. The first one is of course an entrepreneurship based business model. For an entrepreneurship based business model, what you need to have is a solid idea, like social networking for Facebook or e-commerce marketplace model for eBay or eco-friendly cars like in the case of Tesla. Without providing solution to a real-world problem through a solid idea, the entrepreneurship-based business model is bound to fail, and that's the downside to it. Which brings me to the second kind of business model, which is again an individual skill-based model, like in the case of professional career options, like a CA or architect or interior designer, etc. Now this is also highly dependent on the individual skill, and it cannot be taken up by anyone and everyone. To build a market for oneself, there has to be an immense effort which has to go into the brand building. The third kind of business model is any traditional business, like a shop or a restaurant, a hotel, etc. Unless such businesses are with an established company, it runs the risk of lacking in marketing, lacking in sales margins, lacking in extensive distribution systems, and hence there's going to be severe restriction to scaling up such business models. Which brings me to the last kind of business model, which is a franchisee model or a distributorship, dealership model, etc., which you run associated with an established organization. Now, there are many pros to this kind of a business model. Mainly, it is because you are associating yourself with a reputed organization. All your marketing, all your brand building, etc. has already been taken care of. This brand already has a market. There is not as much competition. So you can just take up something and run with it. You don't need to apply your brain in establishing a particular business. But on the downsides, such kind of business models typically come with a very high initial investment. Say for franchisee, you would have the initial franchisee cost, the initial infrastructure setup cost, plus whatever associated running working capital which you would need. For a distributorship or a dealership, there are certain stock levels which you need to maintain, and that is month-on-month investment or week-on-week investment. So when you look at a business model, what you need to analyze is what is going to be your investment, what is the return on this investment, and what are the risks associated with this particular business. That's how you choose a particular business model. It is almost idiotic to depend on a single source of income, and that too something as volatile as something from the job market. Any sort of employment is highly prone to the risk of recession, depression, etc., and the whims and fancies of the corporate officials. So a single source of income is close to suicidal. So that brings us to the end of this recording. Let me conclude by saying that it is really not an option anymore to do a business or not do a business. So you might want to get back to that friend who was recommending a business to you, because you really cannot afford to lose the opportunity of doing a business. So among the business models which we had discussed earlier, taking up a franchisee or a distributorship or a dealership is relatively the simplest one, save for the initial high investment cost. But if you do find a business with low investment and high return on investment and low risk, then you should be taking that up. All you need is a very strong will and a strong decision that you will make it work no matter what. Thank you folks. Have a good day. Thanks for your time.